Welcome to the My Career podcast, and I'm joined by Mitch Lloyd, owner of Petra Jewellery. So welcome, Mitch.
Thank you.
You studied a degree in mechanical engineering.
I did.
And now you are owner of a very successful jewellery business. So can you just tell me how you ended up going from studying mechanical engineering to working in jewellery and in a very creative industry?
Well, it was definitely not my life plan.
Okay.
I'm definitely super happy that I've ended up in this sparkly world of jewellery, but I'm very definitely an engineer. I didn't study mechanical engineering because I had a passion for it. It seemed like a good idea. I was very much a generalist. I didn't do that well in my A-levels. And Swansea University rang me up and they said, we've got some places for females in engineering. Would you like to come do engineering? And I actually was thinking of doing geography because I was one of those young people that didn't know what they wanted to do in life.
Okay.
So that got me into the engineering world. I had done maths and physics at A-level.
Did you enjoy that?
No.
Okay. And so you did mechanical engineering. What was that kind of like experience like as a female?
We were very definitely the minority, and I say we, there were 3 of us out of about 55 students studying mechanical engineering. It was very similar in the other engineering departments, and I'm still good friends with those 2 girls now because we did look and feel different to the stereotypical guy that was on our course.
And so you say stereotypical guy. So what are the differences? What was the difference between being a female on that course and your skills and qualities versus the males that were on the course, do you feel?
The guys who were sort of found some of the engineering principles and the theory and remembering the formula really easy, they wanted to go into a career where they were maybe working on formula and sat at a computer most of the day. And there's a need for that. But there's also a need for somebody to manage that team, to speak the same language, to understand the vocabulary, and to be able to communicate the ideas, to communicate the problems and the challenges, and also look after the human resource. It's not just about the outcome and the problem solving. It's about looking after those people as well who've got lives outside of what's going on at work. And you need somebody in the room that notices when maybe somebody's down about something. And it's nice to have that female touch. And to be able to nurture and show empathy. And it's great for a business if staff are then looked after and they stay and you have staff retention. So I think a lot of engineering businesses and companies know that they do need more of the female influence on a team, but they're struggling because females aren't necessarily going into engineering in the first place.
Okay, and you mentioned sort of a couple of times we're talking about like what you learn in the classroom, like the maths and how it translates into like an actual profession and you can apply it. So if someone is particularly strong and really enjoys maths, then this could be a career that would suit them, even if they hadn't necessarily thought that they could take maths into engineering or their physics as well. It's like, how does that translate into the real world?
You're right, 100%. If you're half decent at maths, and I say that because I'm only half decent at maths, you can get into engineering, and there's some big companies that they will ask for very high grades and in maths and physics. But it's also okay if you're not the most academic, because being a problem solver, thinking outside the box, recognizing that something maybe could be done better than it is now is very different to being good at maths.
Okay.
And so I can quite confidently, now I'm nearly 50, say I'm a good engineer, but I didn't necessarily feel it back when I was in education.
Okay. And we talk about problem solving quite a bit in lots of different professions. And it kind of crops up all the time. So what are those skills behind problem solving? If I'm a young person sitting in a classroom, I'm 14, 15, how would I know if I was a good problem solver? What does that mean when you're younger? Were you a good problem solver then, do you think?
It's a really good question. I probably wasn't aware of it then, but I can see it now in my daughter, who's 14 years old. And from a very young age, she was inventing stuff. We were walking down the road to school, and she must have been in year 3 or 4, and it was raining. She said, "Oh, Mummy, I could have an umbrella that comes out the top of my rucksack, and it will keep me dry, but I'd still have my hands free, because the problem with umbrellas is you hold them like that." And it made me reflect on my own childhood, where I was quite tenacious with not accepting something didn't work or I couldn't do something. I would work out a way. And I think that engineering thinking applies not just to the mechanics of something, it applies to a process and a system.
Yeah. And then sort of bringing it to like your present day role within your jewellery business. How do you draw on your engineering knowledge, kind of like using, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but like some of the techniques, on a much smaller and sort of intricate scale? But I'm assuming that you draw on those when you're designing things, when you're producing things.
Definitely. I mean, we as a business specialise in bespoke commissions, which means we come up with an idea with a customer, design something that's going to suit them aesthetically, but also it's got to suit their lifestyle.
Okay.
So it's got to be structured and engineered in a way that's going to be robust enough and keep the stones secure, but also in the right metal. So for example, I was looking into metals, and I can get quite geeky when I'm doing research and on Wikipedia, and I found out about a metal called palladium that wasn't being commonly used in the jewellery industry, but I realised it had similar properties to platinum. It's in the same area on the periodic table, so it shares a lot of properties. Okay. It's not as dense, and it definitely wasn't as expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, why aren't we making simple things out of palladium? So we started making wedding rings and bangles out of palladium. A few years later, the industry picked up on this and started using palladium for particularly wedding rings, and then eventually the London Assay Office developed a hallmark for it, but we were using it years beforehand, and that's only because I'm an engineer, and I thought, this is a good idea, let's try it. And my goldsmith was like, I don't want to use it. I'm like, come on, let's give it a go, it's good for customers, it's much cheaper than platinum.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a lovely example, isn't it, of like your thinking along with your knowledge, so your creativity, but that kind of physics and knowledge in the background.
If you don't know whether you are an engineer or not, or going to potentially become an engineer, if you think, I'm quite often coming up with solutions for things, or I quite enjoy doing research, then maybe consider it, because there's so many different directions you can then go in.
It's a totally different perspective on it, but that's great, isn't it? Because that's what we need to do, isn't it? Is to sort of break down the myths and the stereotypes.
It's not just going and working for Formula One and designing better engines for cars. There's so much more to it. Just in my world, it's understanding metals, it's understanding structure and strength of things, how things can open and close. There's a lot to it.
And there are opportunities for someone who in school might be very creative, but also can question whether, what they can do with that and the path that they can take. So with regards to like the university route, what advice would you give if someone was watching this and thinking, That's quite intriguing.
I think if you have a hunch you're not academically inclined, do not go to university just to tick the box. Because how much am I using and have I used throughout my wiggly career that is what I learnt at uni? Probably less than 1%. I don't remember any of the formula, and it was very formula focused engineering. I think what's much more important is recognizing that you might have an engineering mind, an engineering way of thinking, and get into something as applied as you can straight away. So that might be going down an apprenticeship route. Even right now, let's say you're still at school. So university feels like a bit further downstream. Volunteer, go and do work experience. Don't necessarily do it through the formal school system. Network through friends and family and just say, can I give that a go? And if you've got that engineering mindset, and I see it in my daughter who is 14, she's come into my business and gone, Mummy, why do you do it like that? And I'm like, yeah, really good point. So you will bring value because of the way you think.
And volunteering is a really great way to like broaden the mind and get experiences that you actually can't get in the classroom, and future employers do find those.
It's a win-win. And you learn so much about yourself as well. And if every experience you do just send you off on slightly different direction, embrace it. Even if you go and do work experience and go, oh, that was really dull. Work out why you found it dull and then adjust and go off in a slightly different direction and try something else.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your experience today. It's been amazing to hear about where you started and how you've progressed through very different careers to end up doing something that has kind of brought you back to something you're really, really passionate about. But yeah, thank you for coming in and sharing your story of being a female engineer.
Thank you, I've really enjoyed it. And if anyone does want to get in touch with me, please send them my way. I'd be very happy to have a chat.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.